Tune in and speak up. Hello, English learners. Want to learn something interesting whilst having fun? Welcome to Tune In and Speak Up, the podcast where you'll get to know this beautiful language in depth. Each week, we'll dive into exciting topics, share practical tips, and tell you fascinating English language stories. So whether you're studying, going to work, or just relaxing, connect, listen, and let's make English part of your world. Wherever you are, whenever you want, just hit play, tune in and listen up. Tune in to UMNH Radio every Tuesday from 11 a.m. till noon. Don't just learn English, live it.
Okay, good morning. Welcome everybody to Tune In and Speak Up, the podcast from Universidad Militar Nueva Granada, where we explore curious stories, surprising facts, and cultural insights from around the world, all through the lens of learning English. I'm Jorge Bermudez, teacher of English at the Department of Multicultural Studies at UMNH, part of the School of Education and Humanities. I'll be your guide through some of the most unusual and thought-provoking topics, from the invention of toilet paper to forgotten inventions and strange scientific discoveries. Whether you're learning English as a second language or just love learning something new, this podcast is for you. Ready to improve your listening skills, expand your vocabulary, and engage in meaningful conversations? Then grab your headphones, tune in, and let's speak up.
Lo que ocurre en la universidad, los acontecimientos y sus protagonistas están en UMNG Radio.
Okay, so here we have our first slide, a roll through history, the history of toilet paper. This story is adapted, as we mentioned last week, from this website that we have here. It says, interesting thing of the day. It says Jeff Miller, but it's actually Joe Kissel. I made a little mistake here. The website is www.itotd.com. So we took from there, we took the inspiration because it's full of thousands of interesting topics. Okay, so toilet paper history. Let's be honest. Few things are as ordinary, overlooked, and yet completely essential to our daily lives as toilet paper. It's something we rarely talk about in public, and yet we depend on it multiple times a day. It's soft, disposable, and always within reach, at least for many of us. But have you ever stopped to wonder where it comes from? Who invented it? Or how people cleaned themselves before it was available? Like many tools of modern convenience, toilet paper has a surprisingly rich, global, and sometimes bizarre story. It tells a story not only about hygiene, but about technology, taboos, economics, and culture. In fact, the story of toilet paper is not just about a product. It's about how civilizations meet a universal human need. From the Roman Empire to the Ming Dynasty, from cornfields in rural America to high-tech toilets in Japan, every society has developed its own answer to this personal but essential problem. And the answers? Well, let's just say they range from clever to downright uncomfortable. Okay, so let's begin with the before the alternatives people used before paper. Okay, so here we have some alternatives. Yes. For thousands of years, people found all kinds of creative, natural, and sometimes painful ways to clean themselves. Toilet paper, as we know it, is a relatively recent invention. Before its arrival, the materials used for personal hygiene depended largely on location, climate, and social class. If you lived in a tropical region, you might have access to large leaves, here on the left, leaves from plants, soft grass on the right, or even coconut husks in the center. In coastal areas, there you go. The next one, please. In coastal areas, shells here on the right were commonly used. In cold or snowy regions, snow here on the left um, served the purpose. People in agrarian societies often turned to what was left after harvest: corn cobs here in the center, hay, or even straw. In ancient Greece, people used pessoi, flat, rounded stones made of ceramic, sometimes recycled from broken pots. These weren't just functional, some were etched with the names of political enemies. Imagine literally wiping away your frustration. So here on the top right, we have pessoi. Remember, flat, rounded stones made of ceramic. Meanwhile, the Romans had their own method, the infamous tersorium. It was a communal sponge attached to a wooden stick, kept in a bucket of salt water or vinegar between uses. These were shared in public latrines, which could sit from 10 to 20 people at a time, side by side with no partitions. You can imagine how modern visitors would react to such a setup today. In medieval Europe, things weren't much better. The poor made do with grass, hay, rags. Here we have, in our picture, we have hay on the left, bare hands in the center, and just plain rags. While the wealthy might use wool or linen cloths that were washed and reused. In Muslim and Hindu traditions, water was commonly used, a hygienic practice that continues in many parts of the world today. Later in the program, we will be talking about that again. In short, before toilet paper, people did what they could and what they had access to. Okay, paper in the problem, China's innovation. The first real leap forward came, as with so many things, from ancient China. China is credited not only with inventing paper itself around the second century before Common Era, but also with using it for personal hygiene earlier than any other culture. Written records from the Tang Dynasty around the 6th century Common Era mention the use of paper for cleaning. Though it wasn't mass produced, people reused pages from books, letters, or official records. But the real breakthrough came much later, during the Ming Dynasty in the 14th century. According to government archives, a staggering 720,000 sheets of special toilet paper were produced each year for use in the imperial court. Each sheet measured roughly 60 by 90 centimeters, so actually very big. And some were even perfumed for the emperor and his family. This wasn't just a functional necessity, it was a status symbol, a luxury good, in a time when most people still used water, cloth, or natural materials. The royal family wiped with giant fragrant sheets of paper. Still, this innovation didn't spread widely outside of China. The use of paper for hygiene in Europe and North America was still centuries away. Even so, this practice shows how far ahead Chinese society was in terms of both technology and cleanliness. Okay, Leito, the next one. Now we come to the West. The West wipes from newspapers to marketing. Fast forward to 19th century Europe and America, and you'll find a strange mixture of old traditions and new materials. Though paper was now common for writing, the idea of using it for the bathroom was still unusual and rarely spoken about. Instead, people used what they had. In the United States, all newspapers, corn cobs, and mail order catalogs were the most popular choices, especially in rural areas. The Sears catalog. Remember Sears, Leito? Sears? Okay. So they use in Bogota, yes. So they publish a catalog. They used to publish a catalog in paper. Here we have a newer version on the left, newer version of the catalog, and on the third picture we have a catalog of the time. So the Sears catalog was used as toilet paper. It became famous for its durability and the convenient hole punch in the corner. They had a little hole, allowing it to hang on a hook inside the outhouse. Okay, so let me explain. On the right, we have something that is called an outhouse, and that means a restroom outside the house, usually in rural areas in the United States. It was built outside the house. In Colombia, it was pretty much the same. So you had to walk out in the middle of the night and go out to the restroom. And there they could hang the catalog, okay, for cleaning themselves. In 1857, the next one, later, an American inventor named Joseph Gayetti, here on the down right corner, changed everything. He created the first commercial toilet paper product in the US, sold in packages of flat sheets made from hemp. Hemp is that little plant on the upper right corner. Looks like marijuana, is not marijuana, okay? The name is hemp. And infused with aloe. Here on the left we have aloe, the famous aloe vera, right? He marketed it as medicated paper for the water closet. Sometimes in North America or in Europe, you find in the door of the restroom you have WC. The that's the meaning is water closet. So he marketed this paper as medicated paper for the water closet and claimed it could prevent or cure hemorrhoids. His name was printed on every sheet, perhaps a marketing strategy of the time. But the product was too expensive for most families, and its medical tone didn't exactly scream comfort or cleanliness. The real revolution came a few decades later with the introduction of the toilet paper roll. Ta-da! Okay, so here we have the famous toilet paper roll, the roll that changed everything. In the 1890s, the Scott Paper Company introduced toilet paper in roll form, which we still use today. This innovation made it easier to manufacture, store, and dispense. It was also cheaper to produce than folded sheets and much more user friendly. But even then, selling toilet paper was tricky. The very idea of talking about such a private function made people uncomfortable. The Scott Company didn't put its brand name on the package for over 10 years. They fear people wouldn't buy it if they were reminded what it was actually for. So on the picture on the right, we have the Scott tissue, right? So remember, it took them 10 years to put their name on the toilet paper. They didn't want to admit they were the company producing this paper. Throughout the early 20th century, toilet paper slowly became more acceptable and more comfortable. Innovations included two-ply rolls. Here we have next to the roll of toilet paper, we have the two-ply. That means two sheets of paper together. Two-ply rolls offering more softness and durability. Embossed patterns here on the left. We have the texture, this texture that you could see. It's called the embossed patterns and quilted textures. Scented and colored paper. Here in the second picture, we have numerous colors. Leonardo, remember when the toilet paper had colors? Yeah, it was common in Colombia for the toilet paper to have comments. The problem is that these dyes, these colors, were eventually discouraged for health reasons. Toilet paper advertising also evolved. Companies shifted from functional claims to emotional appeal, promoting comfort, luxury, and even family friendly images. Think of puppies here on the left, clouds in the center, or smiling babies on the right. What had once been a taboo product had now become a symbol of progress and a standard of modern living. Okay, Leito. Modern panic and public memory. Ooh, modern panic. Toilet paper may seem normal, everyday, mundane, but its absence can quickly trigger public anxiety. That became strikingly clear not once, but twice in recent history. Moments that turned this everyday product into a symbol of social tension. In December 1973, during a US energy crisis, comedian Johnny Carson, here in the picture on the left, joked on national television that there was a shortage of toilet paper. The next morning, Americans rushed to stores, buying up every roll they could find. Shelves were emptied, and real shortages followed, lasting for weeks. The panic began as a joke, but turned into a self-fulfilling prophecy. Decades, decades later, in 2020, the same phenomenon occurred. Only this time, it was no joke. As the COVID-19 pandemic swept across the world, fear of lockdowns and supply chain disruption led millions of people to accumulate toilet paper. Within hours, supermarkets from Australia to Canada had been stripped of their entire stock. People began trading rolls online, guarding family supplies, and in some cases, even fighting in store aisles at supermarkets. Remember, people fighting over toilet paper. Toilet paper became an unexpected symbol of the crisis, not just of hygiene, but of comfort, security, and control. In uncertain times, people reach for something tangible, something familiar. A full shelf of toilet paper became a kind of emotional reassurance. The irony is that modern plumbing and manufacturing systems meant there was never a real shortage. Production never stopped. But panic spread faster than real facts. What emerged from both the 1973 and 2020 incidents was a strange insight. For all our modern advances, our relationship with toilet paper remains deeply emotional and sometimes irrational. Okay, cultural notes. Cleanliness across civilizations. While the invention of toilet paper may have originated in China, its adoption and rejection around the world reflects a deep cultural divide that continues to shape hygiene habits to this day. There is no single correct way to clean oneself. Instead, bathroom behavior has always been shaped by a society's climate, religion, infrastructure, and philosophical views about the body and cleanliness. Here in this slide, we are going to introduce water cultures versus paper cultures, the different options for clean oneself. Perhaps the most significant distinction is between cultures that use water and those that rely on paper. This divide is both geographic and ideological. In much of South Asia, the Middle East, and North and East Africa, water is the primary method of cleaning. Often, this is done using a small vessel called a lota or tabo. As we see in the picture, we have different different kinds of containers for water used in the bathroom, or via a handheld sprayer commonly installed beside the toilet. In these regions, toilet paper is seen not only as unnecessary, but insufficient. Water is believed to clean more thoroughly. This practice is not new. Ancient texts from the Indian subcontinent describe hand washing and water cleansing as essential to ritual purity. In Islam, too, washing with water is part of wudu, the ablution performed before prayer. Cleanliness is seen not only as physical, but also spiritual. Later, we will retake this topic at the end of our program. In contrast, Western societies, particularly in Europe, North America, and Australia and Asia, developed under the influence of indoor plumbing and paper manufacturing, leading to the widespread use of toilet paper. This method emphasizes disposability, privacy, and convenience. For generations, the idea of using water was considered foreign, even unsanitary in some parts of the West. However, as global travel and immigration have increased, the line between paper cultures and water cultures has started to disappear. More Western households are installing bidet, while international hotels increasingly offer both options to accommodate guests from diverse backgrounds. Another major influence on hygiene practices is infrastructure. In countries with older or less robust sewage systems, flushing toilet paper can cause clogs or even damage. In these areas, including parts of Latin America, Eastern Europe, and Southeast Asia, toilet paper may be used but disposed of in a trash bin, not flushed. This practice often surprises travelers from countries with more modern plumbing. In countries with advanced plumbing and strong water pressure, flushing paper is the norm. Still, even in these places, new habits are forming. The rise of flushable wipes, for example, has led to clogged sewer systems and environmental problems. Wastewater treatment plants around the world are now urging consumers to flush only the three P's: pee, poop, and paper, no more. And not even all paper products are created equal. Okay, here in this picture in this slide, we have the bidet renaissance. One of the most fascinating trends in global hygiene is the comeback of the bidet, a French invention from the 17th century, once used by aristocrats in the days before running water was common. Originally a standalone fixture placed next to the toilet, the bidet was used for personal cleansing after using the chamber pot. Though it never became common in the English speaking world, the bidet found its way into homes across France, Italy, Portugal, and in Latin America, Argentina, and in some houses in Colombia. I remember I moved to a house in Teusaquillo when I was a little boy, and we had a bidet. In recent decades, Japan has reinvented the bidet, building it directly into the toilet seat and adding electronic features. These include adjustable water pressure, temperature control, air drying, deodorizing, and even music for privacy. Japanese toilets, often referred to by brand names like Washlet or Toto, have become a source of national pride and a standard of cleanliness. They are featured in hotels, homes, restaurants, and even public restrooms. This innovation reflects a cultural emphasis on politeness, hygiene, and technology. During the COVID-19 pandemic, sales of bidet attachments skyrocketed in the US and Europe as toilet paper became scarce. What was once seen as foreign or even embarrassing quickly became a practical and desirable upgrade. The experience revealed how quickly cultural taboos can be reconsidered under pressure. Okay, so going back to the water and versus paper cultures, we're going to talk about identity and more specifically cleanliness as identity. Toilet habits may seem like a private matter, but they are often tied to social identity and belonging. How people wipe, wash, or flush is not just about sanitation. It's about class, education, religion, and values. In some societies, discussing hygiene openly is considered impolite, while in others it is taught clearly in childhood and reinforced in schools and religious settings. In multi-ethnic societies, this can create friction or misunderstanding, especially when norms collide, as when children from different backgrounds attend school together or when travelers encounter unfamiliar customs abroad. Public awareness campaigns around hygiene often reflect this cultural dimension. In Singapore, for example, public restrooms include signs that instruct users on how to use paper or dispose of it properly. In India, campaigns like Clean India Mission encourage both sanitation and pride in keeping public spaces clean. Meanwhile, global health organizations like the World Health Organization, WHO, promote inclusive sanitary solutions that accommodate different wiping and washing methods, especially in refugee camps and disaster zones. In short, the way people use the toilet is rarely just about function. It is shaped by history, belief, and community. An understanding that helps build cross-cultural empathy and communication. Okay, let's talk about something very important now: sustainability and environmental impact. The previous one later. Behind the softness of every sheet lies a complicated environmental story. Toilet paper is convenient, but its production comes with a high ecological cost. Globally, the toilet paper industry consumes more than 27,000 trees per day. according to the Natural Resources Defense Council. Most commercial toilet paper is made from virgin pulp. Here on the right, pulp that comes from trees that has never been used, fresh cut trees rather than recycled paper. These trees are often harvested from old growth forest, including sensitive ecosystems in Canada's boreal forest. So imagine destroying a forest, yeah, one big forest every day just because we humans need to use toilet paper. Doesn't seem like a good way to go, right? In addition to deforestation, manufacturing toilet paper involves high water consumption, up to 37 gallons of water per roll. So one roll of toilet paper, 37 gallons of water have been used. Chemical bleaching, which can pollute local waterways, and energy use for drying, processing, and packaging. So as we see in the picture, all this industrial process requires electricity and effort, an enormous amount of energy, right? All affecting somehow the environment. In response, some companies have begun to market eco-friendly alternatives. For example, recycled paper made from post-consumer content, though often less soft. Bamboo-based paper. But excuse me, bamboo grows rapidly and requires less water. Unbleached or minimally processed options lower the chemical impact. That's the advantage. And very important, bidets. Common in Asia and Europe, these devices clean with water, drastically reducing paper use. Environmental advocates have pointed out that switching to a bidet could save not only trees but also reduce household spending and sewage waste. In fact, many cultures that rely on water-based cleaning regard toilet paper as inefficient and unnecessary. Despite growing awareness, the cultural attachment to softness, convenience, and tradition keeps virgin fiber toilet paper as the dominant product in many Western markets. Sustainable hygiene remains a niche priority. Now let's talk about the cultural psychology of cleanliness, because it's not only about physical hygiene, it's about and comfort. It's also about the psychology of cleanliness. Beyond materials and methods, toilet paper tells a deeper story about how different cultures perceive cleanliness, privacy, and even shame. In Western societies, cleanliness is often associated with dryness. So we have the idea that if it's dry, it's clean. A clean surface is expected to be dry and odorless. The idea of using water after using the toilet may seem unnecessary or even uncomfortable to some. This contrasts sharply with cultures in the Middle East, South Asia, and Southeast Asia, where water is central to hygiene. These practices are rooted in religion, tradition, and health beliefs. In Islam, for example, personal cleanliness is not just encouraged, it's required for daily prayer. Water-based cleaning is essential. In Hinduism, the left hand is traditionally reserved for cleaning, while the right is used for eating or greeting. Meanwhile, in Japan, high-tech toilets, here in the picture, we can see one in the picture in the center, right? All these buttons and things included in a toilet. These toilets reflect a national obsession with hygiene. Features include bidet sprays, heated seats, air dryers, and, as we mentioned before, even music to mask sounds. These innovations show how a culture can normalize open discussion of a once taboo topic by reframing it as a matter of comfort and care. The US and the UK, in contrast, have only recently begun to embrace alternatives like bidets or wet wipes. Even advertising around toilet paper remains cautious, often using imagery, as we just saw, of clouds, puppies, or vague references to freshness instead of direct language. Cleanliness is not just a matter of soap and water. It's about what a society values: discretion, efficiency, tradition, or innovation. How people clean themselves becomes a quiet but powerful window into their beliefs. Okay, now take a look at this last slide. We're getting near to our conclusion and takeaways. What a role can reveal. As we wrap up this journey through the unexpected history of toilet paper, it becomes clear that this everyday item is far more than a simple household product. Its story intersects with technological progress, human ingenuity, social norms, environmental sustainability, and cultural identity. We have seen how early humans used whatever they could find, from leaves and seashells to corn cobs and ceramic stones. These choices weren't random. They were shaped by the environment, available resources, and the tools of the time. We learned also how Imperial China pioneered the concept of using paper for hygiene centuries before the rest of the world would follow. What began as a practical solution eventually became a symbol of luxury and status, especially in the Ming Dynasty, where perfume sheets were manufactured for the emperor's exclusive use. Then came the industrial age, when Western societies slowly embraced the idea of commercial toilet paper. Yet, even then, the topic remained surrounded by silence and social discomfort. Manufacturers tiptoed around the truth, using soft imagery and indirect language to sell a product everyone used, but no one wanted to discuss. Over the 20th century, toilet paper evolved into a symbol of hygiene, comfort, and modern living. It became softer, stronger, and more widely available. It also became a point of cultural contrast, with some regions continuing to use water, others embracing innovation, and some still relying on traditional methods. In moments of crisis, such as the ones mentioned in 1973 Johnny Carson joke or the 2020 COVID-19 pandemic, the humble role of toilet paper took on an unexpected role. It became an indicator of public fear, preparedness, and even identity. It revealed how quickly modern societies can panic when their daily comforts are threatened. We also explored the environmental side of the story, a growing concern in our time. While convenient, most commercial toilet paper contributes to deforestation, chemical pollution, and unnecessary waste. Yet, sustainable alternatives exist, from bamboo rolls to bidets, offering eco conscious choices without sacrificing hygiene. And finally, we reflected on how this simple product is deeply tied to culture and psychology. What people consider clean is not just physical, it's emotional, moral, and social. The very way a society deals with hygiene reveals what it values, how it views the human body, and what it's willing to talk about or keep silent. Toilet paper may not seem like a profound topic, but its history, the history-long texture and sometimes uncomfortable, right, reminds us that even the most ordinary items can hold extraordinary meaning. Through it, we can see the evolution of technology, the diversity of cultural practices, and the quiet power of social norms. And perhaps most importantly, we are reminded that even the things we never think about, shaped by centuries of history, innovation, and human experience, are protagonists every day in our lives. Okay, we have reached the end of our podcast for today. Thank you so much for joining me today on Tune In and Speak Up, the podcast from Universidad Militar Nueva Granada. In this episode, we unravel the fascinating and often overlooked history of toilet paper, from ancient stones and seashells to high-tech bidets and bamboo rolls. We saw how even the simplest daily routines carry stories of innovation, tradition, and cultural identity. This season, we will continue exploring unusual but meaningful topics that show how language, history, and everyday life are deeply connected. If today's episode helped you learn something new or gave you a new perspective on culture and communication, then our mission is complete. If you'd like to share your thoughts, reflections, or feedback, we'd love to hear from you. Your ideas help us improve, and your voice helps shape future episodes. This podcast is for learners like you, curious, committed, and ready to take the next step. We'll be back next week with another topic that might surprise you, make you think, or spark a conversation in English. Next week, Leonardo, the history of yo-yos. Okay, the yo-yo. In the meantime, keep listening, keep practicing, and most of all, keep speaking up. Until next time, Leonardo, thank you very much.
Tune in and speak up. Hello, English learners. Want to learn something interesting whilst having fun? Welcome to Tune In and Speak Up, the podcast where you'll get to know this beautiful language in depth. Each week, we'll dive into exciting topics, share practical tips, and tell you fascinating English language stories. So whether you're studying, going to work, or just relaxing, connect, listen, and let's make English part of your world. Wherever you are, whenever you want, just hit play, tune in, and listen up. Tune in to UME Radio every Tuesday from 11 a.m. till noon. Don't just learn English, live it.